All right, everyone, we are coming in off of kind of a tilting day yesterday where we end up going 5 for 5. That's great, but kind of robbed, I think, out of a 6 for 6 there with Charlotte there going against the Utah Jazz. And yes, I know some people are going to see kind of the results from Miles Bridges and argue, well, he did extremely well because LaMelo Ball was off the court. But when you had James and Concanopoulos also going off as well in that game, that tends to lead me to believe that Bridges would have still got his, and then Ball would have just had that production that that those two players had. So good, but also tilting there. That does bring up a point, guys. We have been doing pretty well lately with the NBA prop bets, 16 for 23. So don't be surprised if there is a bad day coming up where it doesn't hit as much. We are getting some decent spots, though, today, and so let's go ahead and jump on into those bets. And so one of the bigger edges that we're getting today is actually going to be Austin Reeves to get over his fantasy score here on Underdog. So we're going to start with the Underdog here, guys. This line of 38.5 for his fantasy score is just clearly too low. If you look at his per 36 production thus far this year and last year with LeBron James off the court, he's consistently getting this over. Even with Luka Doncic active, and maybe he's inactive, this is the back end of back-to-back, that could end up happening. If that does, Austin Reeves becomes a very, very appealing over bet for us here on Underdog. And I'll just pull up his game log here, guys, for you. So we do see one game against Memphis where he got the under, but we already saw him go off against Portland. And overall, this does seem like a pretty good spot. Now, guys, we are getting some pretty big prop line differences with Utah as well today. So, like Lauri Markkanen here for over his fantasy score as well. I do end up liking a decent amount here on Underdog, over 35.6. We see that the PrizePicks line has that at 39. The average sportsbook line about 37.6, and the projection data closer to 37. Okay, so we don't necessarily like that, but here, guys, like the Underdog line is just clearly too low to me. And then we're going to see that exact same thing here with Keontae George, where it's off by 4 on Underdog. Now, you could argue that the PrizePicks under is a better bet to go with, but when we're seeing these big prop line differences, I'm fine betting both sides of it. Hopefully, we end up hitting a middle. You know, those have been literally some of the biggest days for myself, and I know a lot of people in 9 to 5 Nation as well. But really, guys, it's just a clear outlier on one of the sides, but really just in general, like there should not be these prop line differences. So Markkanen is interesting in the sense that he definitely looks like he could end up being a middle, whereas George, it seems like we're getting a pretty big edge on betting his under on PrizePicks there. But I did want to call that out on Underdog. I do think that those bets actually could correlate pretty well, though, and that's why I kind of like stacking them together. And the reason why that is, guys, is because Utah is a team that could get blown out tonight, guys. So they are going to be 10.5 point dogs in this game. Now, we do see that Markkanen and George are projected for 33 and 34 minutes. So that should mean we're good to go there. And then it does seem like Walker Kessler could end up sitting again this game. He is listed as out on DraftKings currently. We'll see if that gets updated. I like to use DraftKings, their DFS site. Just they lay out their information pretty well. Ultimately, guys, I want my website to also be set up something like this. I am working on that, so I think that'd be a good setup because I do like their visualizations here. But yeah, if he ends up sitting, that's actually going to help us with the over bets, I would think, for Keontae George and also Lauri Markkanen. Now, if he ends up playing, I think that'd help the middling opportunity. So it is kind of a weird spot there. It is worth calling out, guys, with Keontae George. He has gotten the over of 35.5, 4 straight games. And so he's really crushed the over for his Underdog line of 31.2. So I kind of like just betting on the over here and stacking that with Markkanen. Then we are getting kind of another similar bet there as well, guys, with Jamal Murray for over his fantasy score here of 35 point, let's just call it actually 36. Okay, that is still off by a decent amount, 2.5 there. And so even still, like the lines for him are just too low there on Underdog. It's not a massive edge, but overall, like it does end up being a pretty good spot for us. And if we look at it there with Murray, the concern with him would be the fact that this game could end up being a blowout. We had a very similar spot for Murray earlier on, I think, late last week, where the one concern was the amount of minutes that he would get if the game blew out too fast. And so that would also be the concern here against Sacramento, but it is projected to get 35 minutes. If he ends up getting that, we should be good to go. Now, it is worth calling out, he is currently questionable. So, if he doesn't get his, he's good. Never mind. He's good to go. Looking at the game log, I did want to call it this game against the Pelicans. Like, he was on pace to get his over there, guys. He just ended up with 25 minutes and didn't really need to do that much, although he was very much on pace in that game. And this is another one where I have actually ran out a middle with it because we do see over the last 2 games he has gotten the under. And actually would have got the under on underdog as well. But just again, 2.5 points should not be happening. Just enjoy, like that is just a pretty big edge for us. So take advantage of that. And then after that, guys, we're not necessarily getting massive edges from there. Like I don't want to do McDaniels for under his fantasy score. If you wanted to get to that, you do that on PrizePicks. So after that, there's really not as much there for me personally. And so with that, we'll go ahead and jump on into the top PrizePicks bets here. So yes, we are going to see Jaden McDaniels for under his fantasy score is going to be a very good bet for us on paper. We are going to see Ray J. Davis to get over his points of 8.5 is also a pretty solid bet. Now, I'm a little bit hesitant to get to that because he does draw some Ryan Rollins defense. And you guys know we've been crushing it with Ryan Rollins. I mean, the lines that we're getting with him have been egregious. We'll talk about him in a second. But overall, I mean, it does make sense why this bet would be a bet that's popping up. So like when we look at the Pacers, guys, they are extremely banged up guard wise. Now it was actually Quentin Jackson who ended up going off in the last game. And I would kind of believe that that's going to happen again. Like he's just going to get a lot of minutes in this game over Mac McClung. And so that would be kind of the concern there. And you also have Dennis, who is currently questionable. So he only ended up playing 17 minutes in that game against Golden State. Now prior to that, we did see him, play a decent amount of minutes and get a decent amount of shot attempts up as well. 3 for 14, 6 for 13, 5 for 9. We do need him to get double-digit shot attempts, but if you're telling me if we get some of that is likely to get double-digit shot attempts up with a line of 8.5, that is a little crazy to me. Now, for me, my favorite bet here, and you guys can use whichever ones you want, obviously, but my favorite one is actually Julius Randle to get over his fantasy score here of 41.5. Again, just a clear edge in comparison to how other data points are suggesting this line. So average sports line, projection, and underdog line are all telling us that the PrizePicks line should be a little bit higher. Now this is only an edge of about 53.7%. But even when you like add up his data points here, just on PrizePicks, it would kind of suggest that the lines we're getting for him are too low. With his 5.5 assists, with his PRA at 38, 7 rebounds, like you add all those up together, and his line would be too low. And this is a spot where he has been kind of just crushing with Anthony Edwards out, and so I kind of expect him to continue to do that, guys, in a good spot matchup against Brooklyn. And so that ends up being one of my favorite bets there on PrizePicks. And then yes, guys, I did mention that like this Kante George bet I will be running out as a middle. I like it more so for the over on underdog, even though the data is kind of telling us to do the opposite. So if you guys see it differently, you can do that. I just think the best way to go about attacking him is just bet the middle. I know it's not the best analysis, but it's just a massive prop line difference there. And then from there, we need to get into Ryan Rollins. So Ryan Rollins, guys, has obviously just been crushing it with Kevin Porter Jr. out basically throughout the whole season. The lines have been super slow to adjust to Ryan Rollins, which to me, this line that we're getting on him is still too low. And all the other data points that we're getting for Ryan Rollins are also still too low. Now, my concern with him is that he is kind of just due for a bad game. It is tough to keep up this sort of consistency in terms of how well he has been playing, guys, where he's just making good efforts across the court, on both sides of the court, I should say. And so for his over fantasy score, this seems like such a good bet. It really does. The concern I have is that he is just due for a bad game. That stuff happens unless he's a superstar. And I'm not ready to say that just yet. I hope so, right? As a Bucks fan, but I think he could end up being a star player, but the thing that separates like superstars from star players is superstars like Giannis, for example. You can Jokic, you can trust those guys to consistently give you like whatever their fantasy scores. They'll get very close to that or hit that over. They rarely have like bad games, completely bad games. Whereas Rollins, I'm not willing to go there yet, obviously. And so I just want to be surprising to see him have an outlier game, to see him kind of regress back to what people were maybe expecting to him. Although this line is egregiously low for how well he has been playing, and just look at all the data points that we have. Like look at the last 5 games. It's insane. So I will still be chasing that. This just seems to be one of those spots for me, especially in the NBA where the situation hasn't changed. I'm just willing to keep betting it until one or two things happens. The situation changes or he lets us down. And if we're going to continue to get this line there, I think we just continue to bet on it. From there, let's see. Cade Cunningham to get over 8.5 assists, not terrible. Jalen Duren to get over 5.5 field goals made. I think that's a good bet to attach to that as well. Decent stacking opportunity there. And we are seeing Ryan Rollins for over his rebounds and assists, not a terrible bet. We do have the revenge game narrative for Miles Turner, kind of worth calling out there. There's been a weird beef going on my X feed. Being a Bucks fan, I've seen a lot of stupid stuff going on between Turner and the Pacers fans, and just taking clips out of context and trying to make him like the bad guy. It's just weird stuff going on there. So I do see it kind of going two ways. Miles Turner either has a terrible game or Miles Turner just absolutely goes off. And so this is the best over bet that we're getting for him. I might want to end up getting to that over bet then. You know, if you just want to bet on his over fantasy score or something like that, you can, just betting on him to have a good game. But from there, guys, not nearly as many great bets. And then I did get a question about college basketball, guys. With it starting today, we're just not getting that many sportsbook data coming in just yet for it. So it is loaded on into the system. We're just not getting enough data from other sportsbooks coming into that just yet. And so I do want to bring that up because typically we get even bigger edges with college basketball. There is one that still tilts me to this day. And I can't find it on my X feed right now, but basically the two sites were out by like 8, and Underdog, and he ended up middling, and Underdog ended up marking it as a DMP, saying that it was a clear error in their data. And I just remember, I'm like, it was some like random team that they just decided to include in the site. So it was clearly just the person that did that line just did it terribly and had an excuse. That doesn't happen. That was an outlier, guys. But that is a good example of kind of how we end up getting some pretty big edges for college basketball. So I did want to touch on that. I was a little bit bummed out that we weren't getting any for today, but that'll be something to look out for the college basketball season. And that'll probably be something I talk about maybe in the NBA videos, just because if I put out a college basketball video, that will most likely hurt the channel, which is so stupid. I hate that. I wish I could literally put out a video like per hour covering several various sports. The YouTube algorithm doesn't like that, and it's annoying. So let's go ahead and get into the bet of the day here, guys. We'll start out with PrizePicks, and I'll show you guys it on the generate bet slips sheet here. So we do have we're losing a slight edge against PrizePicks when we're using this bet, but that's mostly because I'm tossing in Ryan Rollins there. And just like these last three are just under 54%, but overall, I do think that just given the prop line differences that we're getting between some of the sites, I think mostly we're just gaining some pretty big edges here. Little bit of a risk with Ray J. Davis. Maybe he's not as healthy. Maybe doesn't play over 30 minutes. A little bit of a worry there. And again, with Ryan Rollins, maybe he ends up having a bad game. I'm willing to see that through. And then for Underdog, guys, we are just going to be attacking kind of these bet slips that we're getting here as well. So overall, a decent bet slip there. In general, guys, we are losing a slight edge again to Underdog just because we are attacking like Murray, George, and Marketing, where they're not exactly, plus CV bets, but just given the prop line difference, I'm willing to take on that risk. If you just wanted a 2-slip bet, Julius Randle and Austin Reeves for over their fantasy scores. But it is worth calling out, guys, with Julius Randle, it is a better bet on PrizePicks, so you're just better off placing that bet there. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel as well. If you guys like access to any of the tools that you saw throughout this video, make sure to head on over to 9to5sports.com and sign up for them. They're all available. All the tools available on the website are available for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. I appreciate you guys being here. Good luck. And as always, let's get cash.